It's 2 a.m. and you're not asleep. You're 3 years in the past, replaying a conversation everyone else involved forgot by the next morning. Did that sound rude? Why did I say it like that? Should I text and clarify? No, that would make it weird. Or would it? Welcome to the mind of someone who overthinks everything, where a single offhand comment becomes a 4-hour investigation, where sending a text means drafting it 6 times, where a simple decision spawns a flowchart of 47 possible futures, each one carefully imagined, most of them ending badly, and where the brain, helpfully, never clocks out. And the world's advice for these people is always the same useless sentence. Just stop thinking about it. As if the thoughts were a tap you could turn off. If only you weren't too stubborn to try. But people who overthink everything do not have a broken mind. They have a mind that works extremely well, doing exactly the job it was built for, with one crucial part missing: the off switch. Let's start with the difference between thinking and overthinking, because they are not the same thing, and the gap between them is where the trouble lives. Healthy thinking is a problem-solving tool. It takes a question, works toward an answer, and then stops. Overthinking does something else entirely. Psychologists have a precise name for it: rumination. The researcher Susan Nolan Hoeksema, who spent her career studying it, defined rumination as repetitively turning a problem or a feeling over in your mind, focusing on it again and again, without ever moving towards a solution. And that last part is everything. Real problem-solving moves forward. Rumination just circles. It feels like you're working on something. It feels productive, even urgent. But you're not solving the problem. You're rehearsing the pain. And here's the cruel part Nolan Hoeksema's research uncovered. Rumination doesn't just fail to help. It actively makes things worse. Brooding on a problem deepens low mood, fuels anxiety, and, paradoxically, impairs the very problem-solving it's pretending to do. The longer you circle, the foggier you get. So the overthinker isn't lazy or weak. They're trapped in a loop, their own brain mistakes for effort. But why can't they just stop? Why does the mind keep running when there's nothing left to figure out? For that, we have to talk about the brain itself. There's a network in your brain called the default mode network. It's the system that switches on when you're not focused on a task, when you're resting, daydreaming, lying in the dark. And what does it do in that idle state? It turns inward. It replays the past, rehearses the future, narrates your own story back to you. For most people, this network hums along quietly in the background. But in chronic overthinkers, in people who ruminate, this network tends to be louder, more active, harder to quiet down. Their mind, left with no task to occupy it, doesn't go still. It idles in worry. Imagine a powerful engine that never fully shuts off, just sits there revving in the driveway, burning fuel, going nowhere. That's the overthinking brain at rest. But here's where it gets genuinely interesting. Because underneath all of it is a single driving need, and once you see it, the whole thing makes sense. Overthinkers, almost without exception, struggle with something psychologists call intolerance of uncertainty. They cannot sit comfortably with not knowing. An open question, an unresolved situation, an outcome they can't predict. It doesn't register as neutral. It registers as a threat. And so the overthinking is actually an attempt at control. If I can just think through every possible scenario, the logic goes, I can be ready for all of them. Nothing will blindside me. I'll be safe. Each imagined disaster is the mind trying to build a shield against a future it desperately wants to feel certain about. And for a lot of overthinkers, this traces back to where it began. If you grew up somewhere unpredictable, a volatile home, a parent whose mood you had to read like weather, a place where mistakes had real consequences, you learned a survival skill very early. Anticipate. Scan ahead. Catch the problem before it catches you. Your brain became a threat detection machine because, once, that machine kept you safe. The vigilance was a gift the world handed you when you needed it. The problem is that it never learned how to power down once the danger passed. Which brings us to the trap at the center of the whole thing, the reason it's so hard to escape. Your brain genuinely cannot tell the difference between worrying and working. When you ruminate, it feels like you're handling the threat, taking action, being responsible. So your mind keeps doing it because it believes it's protecting you. But you can't think your way out of uncertainty. You can't pre-solve a future that hasn't happened. So you circle and circle, convinced you're being productive, while the only thing actually happening is your sleep evaporating and your anxiety climbing. It's worry wearing the costume of problem solving, and your brain falls for the disguise every single time. But here, finally, is the part nobody tells overthinkers. And it might be the most important thing in this whole video. The exact same engine that builds your worst-case scenarios is the engine that builds everything good about your mind. The vivid imagination that runs 47 disaster movies at 2 a.m. is the same imagination that makes you creative, insightful, 3 steps ahead. The sensitivity that replays a conversation is the same sensitivity that makes you notice what other people miss, that makes you thoughtful, careful, deeply empathetic. In fact, some research has found that the tendency to worry and ruminate is positively linked with higher verbal intelligence. Read that again. Your overthinking might be a side effect of having a sharp, fast, powerful mind. You do not have a defective brain. You have an extraordinary one, pointed in the wrong direction, with the brakes worn out. So if this is you, here's the one question worth keeping close. The next time your mind starts to spiral, ask it simply, is this something I can solve right now? If the answer is yes, then think, plan, act. That's your brilliant mind doing its real job. But if the answer is no, if you're circling something already done, or something not yet here, then gently remind yourself, this isn't problem solving. This is just the engine idling. And an idling engine doesn't need more fuel. It needs permission to rest. Because the truth is, you were never overthinking because something was wrong with you. You were overthinking because some part of you was trying very hard to keep you safe and never got told it was finally allowed to stand down. That mind of yours isn't your enemy. It's a guard that never learned the war was over. And maybe tonight, you can be the one to finally tell it. If this hit home, go ahead and subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel. And if you want to support these deeper dives, hit the join button to become a member. I'll see you in the next one.